Dua was born and raised in a small village tucked deep within the northern hills of West Sumatra. The village never appeared on maps, had no signal, and was never visited by anyone except those who got lost. Life there was quiet, or at least, people pretended it was. In Dua's village, there was one unspoken rule that everyone followed without question. Every newborn must cry, if not. The baby would be taken to Bukit Menyan before the first light of dawn touched the ground. No funeral, no ceremony, no tears. The villagers only said, "That's the way it is." Dua grew up watching families lose their children before they were even breastfed. No one protested, no one fought back, because everyone knew anyone who resisted would lose more than just a child. That night, Dua had just returned from Padang after years of working as a medical professional. He came home with his wife, Rani, who was 9 months pregnant. She said she wanted to give birth, and the village said she wanted to be near Dua's mother, but he knew that wasn't the real reason. She was afraid to give birth alone in the city. That night, the wind blew strangely. The sky held no stars. The roosters didn't crow, even though it was close to dawn, and from behind the kitchen wall, Dua heard his mother chanting prayers in a trembling voice. He recognized the signs. His wife began moaning in pain. Her water had broken before the village midwife could even be called. Dua helped with the delivery himself, hands shaking, breath uneven. Blood covered his arms. But finally, the baby was born. Pale, warm, perfect. But no sound, no cries, no wailing, no first scream that should mark a new life in this world. He rocked the baby gently, rubbed his back, gave light pats. The baby only looked up at him, with dark eyes far too deep for a newborn, silent, unnerving. Then came a knock at the door, 3 times, soft, rhythmic, as if they'd been waiting all along. "The women have come," said his mother from behind, but her face didn't reflect the joy of becoming a grandmother. Her hands trembled as she held a small white burial cloth, one she had seemingly prepared in advance. "Don't open the door, Maz," Rani whispered from the bed. "Please, don't take our baby to them." Dua stood frozen. He stared at the wooden door of their home, and the knocking returned. Talk, talk, talk. The voice was soft, almost gentle, but that's what made it worse. It wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It was calm to calm, as if this wasn't the first time it had said those words. Dua stood still. The baby in his arms was quiet, still not crying. But now his eyes were open, staring directly at the door, or something behind it, as if he knew. Ronnie's weak voice came from the bed. "Don't open it, please. Maz, we can take him and run. We can leave the village." Dua didn't answer. He knew something she didn't. No one leaves Padang Menyan. There's only one path out, and it vanishes when the mist falls. People who tried to escape were never seen again. Not even a whisper of their names returned. Talk, talk, talk. The knock came again. Calm, measured. 3 times, the sound slid under the wooden door and wrapped around Dua's spine like cold fingers. Then his mother spoke. "Open the door. Dua, before they come through the walls." He turned to her, disbelief in his eyes. "You want them to take your grandchild?" Nayai Marni's eyes were wet, but her face showed no fear, only regret, as if she had seen this before, as if she had done this before. Dua's heart pounded in his throat. Slowly, he walked toward the door. The baby in his arms didn't flinch. No crying, no sound, just those eyes. He took one breath and opened it. 3 women stood outside, dressed in pure white, not cloth shrouds. Their garments looked like burial wraps, clean and untouched by mud. Despite the wet soil beneath their bare feet, their faces were hidden by a strange mist that clung only to them. Not the air, not the forest, only them. The woman in the center stepped forward. Her voice was the same one he heard earlier. "This child was marked long before birth. He won't survive in your world." Dua stepped back. In his arms, the baby blinked once and smiled. But it wasn't the smile of an innocent newborn. It was aware, too calm, too knowing. Dewa turned to his mother. "What the hell is going on?" Nyai Marni didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed locked on the floor as she whispered, "You're born like this." Dewa, silent. No tears. "Your father tried to hide you for 2 nights. On the 3rd, they found him hanging from a Menyan tree, and you were still in his arms, quiet, watching, smiling." Dewa's legs nearly gave out. Suddenly, the air shifted. The temperature dropped. Wind slithered through the open door. Ronnie screamed from the bed. The woman in white looked at the baby, then back at Dewa. "You cannot save this child, because you yourself were never truly saved." Those words didn't just echo inside the house, they sank into Dewa's chest, into the walls, into the silence that followed. The 3 women in white turned away without waiting for permission, and slowly disappeared into the mist-covered path that led toward the hill. No sound of footsteps, no trace left behind. Dewa closed the door, locked it with hands that trembled. The baby in his arms had stopped smiling, but still hadn't cried again. Only the faint sound of Ronnie's sobbing filled the room. Mixed with the dim flickering of the oil lamp, the shadows on the walls seemed to move slightly, as if they were listening, waiting. Dewa couldn't stop thinking about what the woman said about him. He sat across from his mother, Nyai Marni, who was boiling water with trembling hands. The silence between them was heavy, unnatural. Finally, he asked the question that had been growing louder in his head. Was she telling the truth? His mother didn't answer right away. Then she looked up, her eyes already filled with something deeper than fear memory. Yes, Dewa's chest tightened. "You're born on a Thursday night. No crying. Just like your son, your father thought he could hide you. For 2 nights, he kept you in the woods, away from the village. He thought maybe if no one knew, the hill wouldn't call." She took a breath, a shaky one. "On the 3rd night, they found him hanging from the Menyan tree. But you're still alive, still quiet. You just looked at them and smiled." Dewa felt his spine turn cold. He had no memory of this, no pictures, no stories. His father's death had always been described as an accident in the woods, a slip, a fall. But now the baby in his arms shifted. Still no sound, but the air grew heavier. "Why didn't you tell me? I thought it ended with you. I thought maybe you were the last." Her voice cracked. "But the hill doesn't forget. Dewa, it just waits." Outside, the night deepened. The wind changed direction, whistling through the cracks of the window. Dewa looked out the narrow slit in the wall and saw something he hadn't seen in decades. No smoke. Bukit Menyan, the hill that had always let out a thin, eternal ribbon of white into the sky, was completely still, silent, blank, like it was holding its breath. And Dewa knew something was wrong. The smoke had never stopped before. Not in his childhood, not in his memory, even when the sky was clear or the monsoon swept through the valley. The smoke from the top of Menyan Hill always rose, thin and white, like a signal no one dared interpret. Now, the hill looked naked, watching, waiting. He turned from the window, breath shallow. His baby had fallen asleep, still silent, still cold, but his chest rose and fell gently. Nyai Marni was kneeling in the back room, muttering old prayers, words Dewa hadn't heard since he was a child, the kind of prayers that were not from the Quran, nor from any religion he knew. They were older, earth-born, whispered only during certain nights, the kind of nights where the air itself seemed to lean in closer. "Mother," Dewa said, "I'm going to the hill." Nyai Marni looked up sharply. "No, I need to know what's up there." "No one goes to Menyan Hill, not unless they're taking something." "I'm not taking him," Dewa whispered. "I'm taking myself." She stared at him, eyes wide. "You don't understand. That place, it doesn't just wait, it remembers. And it never forgets who escaped." Dewa ignored her. He tightened the strap of his bag, grabbed a flashlight and a knife not for protection, but for courage, and wrapped himself in his old jacket. He slipped out before dawn, while the baby still slept, and while Ronnie muttered feverish dreams under her breath. Outside, the path was damp. Trees leaned over like they were listening. The mist came low, curling around his ankles like it knew his name. At the foot of the hill, Dewa paused. He had never seen this path before. Winding upward, made of old stone ancient, carved with symbols half swallowed by moss, and along the path, small footprints, tiny child-sized, some barefoot, some dragged, none returning. Dewa swallowed. The deeper he climbed, the colder the air became, not mountain cold, but unnatural, a kind of chill that came from the ground itself, as if something beneath was breathing out. Halfway up, he passed white cloth snagged on a tree branch, a shroud, torn at the edge, with a faint, dried stain of red. It fluttered once as he passed, though there was no wind. He kept walking, until finally he reached the clearing, a perfect stone circle. In the center, a shallow pit lined with ash and bone, and around it, dozens of tiny straw dolls facing outward, watching the woods, watching the village. Most of them had blank faces, no features, but the one in the center, it had eyes, real eyes, wet, glossy, still moving. Dewa stumbled back, and then he heard it, the crying, faint at first, then multiplying. One baby, then more, dozens, hundreds, all coming from beneath the ground. He looked down into the pit. There was a hole, narrow, dark, breathing. And from within, something stirred, a sound, not just crying now, whimpering, pleading, whispering, laughing, all layered in one. Then a hand, small, pale, crawling out, not panicked, not shaking, reaching. Then the voice came again, familiar, the one from his door. You're never truly saved, Dewa, but now you can choose. And from the shadows, one woman in white stepped forward, alone. Take your place, or give us the child. The words fell like stones in Dewa's chest. The woman in white stood unmoving at the edge of the circle, her face still veiled by shadow and mist, her voice as calm as it was when she came to his door. Around him, the straw dolls shuddered lightly, as if they had heard the offer too. The wind stopped. The hill fell completely silent. Even the cries from below the pit faded into a low, rhythmic hum, a pulse, like the hill itself was waiting for an answer. Dewa's eyes scanned the circle again. The dolls, the pit, the shroud caught in the tree, and the one doll in the middle, the one with real, blinking eyes. They stared at him. Why me? He asked, his voice cracked. Why now? The woman's head tilted slightly. Because you are the first to be spared, the first to survive. You carry the silence with you, Dewa, and now you've passed it on. He shook his head. My son cried. No, she said gently. The cry wasn't his. It was what lives beneath, crying through him, calling us. Dewa backed away from the pit, but something behind him shifted. The trees creaked. The ground pulsed again. You can break the line, she whispered, but only with blood. A life. For a life. His knees grew weak. Every breath burned his chest. He thought of Ronnie, of the way she had held their son even in fear, of the smile she hadn't seen since. He thought of his father, hanging from a tree, holding him. Was this what he had tried to prevent? And then he understood. The price of breaking the pattern was to take the place of the forgotten. Dewa looked at the woman. If I take his place, will it end? For your bloodline, yes. He stepped forward, and suddenly, the pit exhaled. Wind rose violently from within, carrying the cries of hundreds. Faces flickered in the dirt. Tiny hands reached from beneath the ground, but they weren't grabbing. They were welcoming. As Dewa stepped into the circle, the dolls turned slightly all at once, as if recognizing him, accepting him. He looked up one last time. The sky above Bukit Menyan was still. Then, without a scream, without a cry, Dewa stepped into the pit, and the earth closed behind him. It rose in a perfect, silent spiral from the top of Bukit Menyan, just like it always had, thin, slow, and eternal, as if nothing had ever changed. But the villagers felt it, a shift, a tension released, an old weight finally lifted. None of them spoke. They just watched the smoke climb the morning sky, like breath returning to a body. Inside the house at the edge of the village, Ronnie cradled her baby, now truly hers. He cried like any child, not with pain, not with fear, but with life, warm and loud, his eyes clear, no longer dark and distant like before. He felt free. Ronnie kissed his forehead and wept quietly. She didn't know what had happened on the hill, didn't know the price that had been paid, but something in her heart whispered the truth. Dewa was gone, but not lost. The villagers resumed their quiet routines. The sky remained still, the mist no longer crept to low, and no babies were born without crying. But legends began to change. Some nights, people claimed to see a man standing at the edge of the trees near Bukit Menyan, just standing, watching, not moving, not threatening, just there. The children called him the guardian of the hill. They said if you were very quiet and you listened hard enough in the early dawn, you could hear him whispering something gentle to the forest. Sleep now, you are no longer forgotten. Somewhere beneath the earth, in the hidden roots of Menyan Hill, 1,000 tiny hands finally rested. 1,000 cries faded into calm. The pit no longer moaned, the dolls no longer moved, and in the center of the stone circle, one straw figure stood taller than the rest. Its face was featureless, but from behind the eyes, something warm glowed faintly. It had taken his place, and it would never let another be taken again.